going to have to get in there and kind of whittle them smooth, sand them up a bit, and decide if they're going to color them, add handles, etch them, or burn in their names, or whatever the heck they want. This could be one of those pieces that you take with you all the way through from Scouts, Ventures, Rovers. You could start them earlier, but I think traditionally we see these start coming out in Scouts, and mainly the older kids start to get interested. As at the younger age and maybe the older age, they just whack each other with them. Hey folks, welcome to the Big Backyard. Excited to have you here today. I've got my campfire going, Scout uniform on. Today it's Scouter Day in my big backyard. I'm going to talk a little bit more about Scout Staves because I'm going to do a few videos on those. I think they're a lot of fun, some great tools to use to learn some skills for camping, something to do, and a huge tradition. And I don't want to see that lost because there's a lot to it. Definitely can get into the crafts and give you something to do when you're out hiking and around the campfire. One thing to note, you can't go around just chopping down trees, so don't bring around a folding saw and take all the green wood you find. Remember, leave no trace. This stuff is from people's yards, mostly my yard, but I do have a story to tell about some I got from a lightning strike that are pretty cool. And so we'll get to the story of the poles or staves for these projects, and as I go through making some more of them, and as my troop starts making them, I'll put out a few more videos. I'm going to try and keep them short, but I love tradition in scouting. So the story of where this wood came from, this stuff over here came from my big backyard. We had a derecho last year, and it was pretty intense. I mean, we're getting so much extreme weather lately, we're making up new names for it, at least from around here. I don't know what the difference between that and a tornado is, but it blew down a lot of stuff. And in my backyard, I had to clean up some debris. And so I cut off some lengths. And you want to probably get something a little bit longer than you want. So for most people, 5 foot, that's probably right where you want to be. I think you can size them from the ground up to your chin or up to your nose, somewhere in that range, whatever feels comfortable. But for a scout staff, you're going to need some functional length. So 5 foot's pretty good because we're going to use that for all kinds of pioneering and bushcraft type stuff. Plus, that's just a good length to look cool. And anything longer, it's hard to take that in the car. And if you're one of those urban scouts or bushcrafters, even taking that on the bus. But I did make some longer ones, and you're going to see some more stout sticks in the background there. Those ones are cut to 6 feet because I made them for an adult and a couple of adults, because those ones are special. We'll talk about those later as we're going to get the troop to work on them. But I'm just going to clean them up a bit. I want to leave them rough. And when you look at the close-up here, you're going to see there's a lot of rough cuts and little bits of wood off there. That's okay. You want to practice your whittling, and time to get in there and sand after that before you stain that up with whatever you want to use to treat that. You also might want to do some artwork on there, some etching, burning. When it is stained up, then you can add maybe a paracord wrap or some leather. You could even use one of your scouting woggles, and that's just a funny little thing that clips on your neckerchief. I'll maybe do a video on some of the scouting stuff later when we get into more traditions. That woggle could go around, and you could clip on your group woggle if you have one, or if not, maybe put the woggle that you used in the section before. And scouting's made up of sections that go from beavers, which is a younger age. So you got 5, 6, and 7. Then we have cubs that go 8, 9, and 10. Scouts, it's interesting. You can go either 3 years or 4 years and switch to ventures. So you're going to have 11 to 14, somewhere in that range. Then our ventures switch out from 14 to 18, somewhere in that range. And then 18 to 24 for rovers. Back to the staff. So most of these are going to be off of maple, and they look pretty clean because they were freshly stripped. So there was a big pile of shavings on the ground here, and when I do some of these, you're going to see that. And what I'm doing to strip them, there's lots of different ways, but they were aged for a year. Now they've lightened up a bit because of that. A lot of the moisture has left them, but they kind of look new and fresh, and they're not. This is not something I hacked off a living tree, so please don't go and do that unless you own the tree. Look for something that's broken off, and someone's going to throw it out anyway. Walking around a big city, you're going to see that all over the place before garbage day. Or you're going to get some deadfall, but don't go into a national provincial park and start picking that up. We want to think about leave no trace. So that has affected our ability to do some pioneering, but you're going to find lots of sticks. Now, these ones are really interesting because just recently, about a week ago, we had a lightning strike that was pretty crazy, and about 4 or 5 tornadoes go through at least. And we seem to be northern tornado alley now here in my area in Ottawa. But these look rougher and older than the previous ones I was showing you, but these are fresh off a living tree that was hit by lightning, and it split the tree straight down. There was an amazing piece of maple that must have been about 15, 20 feet long that was like a giant plank, super heavy, so I couldn't move it. I walked over and talked to the people whose lawn it was on and said, hey, do you mind if I cut some of these up? And they were glad to have it got rid of. And I took some lengths that might be appropriate, anywhere from about 4.5 to about 6.5 feet. Still have the bark on them, and some of them are a little rough in shape, and that's actually pretty cool. You're going to get some really nice looking sticks out of that. Going to do a little bit of work to get rid of the knots and some of those little V-shaped splits and that sort of thing, but I think it's going to be worth the effort. And you don't need super huge. We're going to talk about the size in a minute, but just enough so you're going to have something you can lean on and make into some tools. So this one's a maple, lightning strike, and that's unfortunate. It was a really big old maple, but I did salvage some of that, and I'm sure some other people came and picked up some of that wood too. So just as an example, this one is pretty curved. I'm going to put that down here. Not too close to the fire, of course. It is green, but it will catch fire. If you get too much more curve than that, it's going to maybe make it awkward to walk with, and I'm not even sure how that one will go, but it might be pretty good. A lot of time you want to shoot for something a little bit straighter, but you work with what you got. Now, I love finding stuff that has interesting ends because you might be able to cut that and use that somehow, some kind of decoration tool or anchor point. So I like to leave these little V's on there. I can trim them up, and I'm always leaving them longer than I need anyway, so that when I strip them, if there's a piece I need to remove, I have more working end of stick. So don't just cut this stuff off. You never know what you can do with that. For a Scout staff, you want something anywhere from 3/4 of an inch at the top, to inch and a quarter at the bottom. 1.5 inches starts getting really big. Bigger staffs maybe for taller people or some scouters. Really, you can do a lot of the pioneering and bushcraft stuff with this, but just the act of making them. And I'm going to strip off some of the bark, and the weather does a lot of that, but they're going to have to get in there and kind of whittle them smooth, sand them up a bit, and decide if they're going to color them, add handles, etch them, or burn in their names, or whatever the heck they want. This could be one of those pieces that you take with you all the way through from Scouts, Ventures, Rovers. You could start them earlier, but I think traditionally we see these start coming out in Scouts, and mainly the older kids start to get interested. As at the younger age and maybe the older age, they just whack each other with them. If you haven't already volunteered as an adult, get out there and volunteer with some kind of volunteer group. And of course, Scouting, we could use you. If you like the outdoors and you like adventure and fun, you could be volunteering, and you don't need to have a kid for that. So join us, join our youth, and youth, hey, this is a project you could do. So talk to your scouters. You don't need to know how to do this. You can kind of make it up as you go. There's no right way to do this, but I'll talk about what I do know and what I'm finding out as I work through this stuff.